Imagine you're trying to untangle a deeply complicated knot. Right. Let's say it's a massive family dispute or maybe a systemic breakdown at work.
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
Exactly. And you decide to bring in a mediator to smooth things out. But the moment this person sits down at the table, you realize they've brought their own uh, heavy luggage into the room.
Right, they have their own biases,
Yeah.
like a personal history with conflict.
Yeah, or a subtle agenda for how things should resolve. Suddenly, the very person you brought in to fix the problem is just adding a whole new layer of complexity to it. We see this all the time.
We do. It is the ultimate catch-22 of seeking guidance. I mean, you go looking for absolute clarity, but the source you're consulting is already viewing the world through this deeply specific, often polarized lens.
Because any advice you get is filtered through their history.
Exactly.
But what if you could consult something that didn't have a lens at all? Today, we are dissecting excerpts from a profoundly paradigm-shifting text titled Alkesh, the undivided source of primordial alignment.
It is such an incredible source to look at.
It really is. The mission for this deep dive is to explore this huge aha concept of a divine force that completely predates human division. We're looking at a framework that predates conflict, predates emotional baggage.
And we're going to break down how understanding this can radically untangle the knots in your own daily life.
But that requires completely dismantling how we typically conceptualize a higher power, or really any guiding force. We're so conditioned to categorize things.
Right. We want to know what a force stands for, what its specific domain is, and most importantly, what side it's on.
We treat mythological pantheons like a crowded dinner table. There's the god of war sitting over here, the goddess of love over there. Everyone has a job.
Everyone is highly specialized.
Exactly. But this text introduces Alkesh not as a new deity pulling up a chair to join that crowded table. Alkesh is the table itself.
Which is a massive shift in perspective.
It is. Alkesh is the undivided point that all those other pantheons are ultimately gesturing toward without quite naming it.
Huh.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text uses a very specific word to describe Alkesh, and it's going to completely flip how you think about blessings and curses.
He really does.
The text calls Alkesh the androgynous primordial one.
Yeah.
But when I read the word androgynous, my modern brain instantly pictures, like, a hybrid, dualistic god or biological intersex, where a being is essentially both male and female stitched together.
Well, that is the modern reflex, right? To assume encompassing everything means taking two distinct things and forcing them into one container.
Right.
But before we can understand how Alkesh acts in the world, we have to look closely at how the text defines existing before division. The source is incredibly precise here.
How so?
It states that Alkesh existed before the first division, before light separated from dark, before breath separated from body, before the concept of this even implied a that. What's fascinating here is the text makes a very sharp distinction between the word genderless and Alkesh's actual nature.
Right, because genderless implies a blank slate. It sounds like an absence, like you erased the defining features and just left a void.
Yeah, genderless suggests a lack of something, but the text argues Alkesh is a fullness.
A fullness.
Yes. Every gendered face of the divine that emerged later in human history, every specialized god or goddess, fuse or nurturing, was already folded inside Alkesh as pure possibility.
They were waiting to unfold into their own specialties. So Alkesh isn't someone who chose a side and then generously decided to also represent the other side.
No, not at all.
Alkesh is what existed before there were sides to choose from. The text uses this brilliant analogy of a seed. Alkesh is whole the way a seed is whole, before it has decided whether to become a root or a stem.
That seed analogy perfectly captures the mechanics of potential energy. A seed isn't half root and half stem stitched together.
Right, it's just the seed.
Exactly. It is the undivided origin of both. It holds the blueprint for the entire system without having committed to a specialized function yet.
I want you, the listener, to pause for a second. Imagine what it would feel like to encounter something that demands absolutely zero specialization or categorization from you.
Oh, it would be incredibly freeing.
Right. There's no expectation for you to be this instead of that because you're dealing with the fullness that those later smaller rivers divide out of.
And because Alkesh predates that split into specialized branches, the way they offer guidance operates on a fundamentally different frequency from any other force.
Well, let's look at those specialized rivers. If Alkesh is the seed, how do the later specialized branches operate when you ask them for help?
The text points out that specialized deities, or really any specialized forces, already come with a side. They have a history, they have old wars, rivalries, and deeply entrenched positions. Yeah, cosmic baggage. The source gives these incredibly clarifying examples. It says, if you ask a specialized deity of justice for help, you are going to get severity riding alongside it.
Oh, wow.
It is a package deal. If you ask a deity of protection for guidance, suspicion comes right along with it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about how that translates to our own lives. Protection and suspicion. Justice and severity. You can't get one without the other.
Because they're bound by their own specialized history.
Exactly. How much of the advice and guidance we get every day is exactly like this? How much of the counsel you receive from friends or mentors is tangled up in the very politics that created your problems in the first place?
Oh, almost all of it.
You ask a mentor for help, setting a boundary at work,
Yeah.
and you get a huge dose of their personal resentment packaged with the advice.
We constantly inherit the baggage of the solution along with the solution itself. To use a deity of protection as an example to protect, you must constantly scan for threats.
You have to view the world as inherently dangerous.
Exactly, so the guidance you receive will always be colored by hypervigilance. But if you visualize Alkesh, it is like shifting your gaze from a crowded, noisy, politically charged city up to a completely clear, ancient, starlit sky.
That's a beautiful image.
Alkesh's counsel doesn't come preloaded with an agenda. It doesn't have a grudge. It doesn't have a preferred outcome for you to win and someone else to lose, because Alkesh predates the very conditions that produce winning and losing.
It's the ultimate clean signal. There is no static on the line.
It is pure guidance without the historical distortions. You aren't getting advice from a force that needs to validate its own past traumas.
But wait, let me push back a bit here.
Sure.
If this force is so detached, if it has no agenda and doesn't take sides, does it just passively watch people suffer? Like, what happens when someone is dealing with something genuinely awful?
That is the big question.
Right. How does an undivided force deal with what the text calls curses if it won't take a side to fight the bad energy?
Well, that requires looking at how the text radically redefines what a curse actually is. The punitive model of the universe, the one most of us are raised with, says a curse is a moral punishment.
Like a lightning bolt dropped from an angry sky because you messed up.
Exactly. Or because some deity is keeping a cosmic scoreboard and you fell behind.
Right. We tend to view suffering as a receipt for some past wrongdoing.
But the text argues a curse is merely a redirection of your current. It is a piece of your own energy that has been diverted, knotted up, or fed backward.
And what causes that knot?
The root of that knot is almost always fear. It could be your own acute fear, an old family pattern repeating itself through you, or just an inherited limiting belief about what you are allowed to experience in this life.
So it's an energetic bottleneck.
Exactly.
It's not a punishment from above, it's a kink in the hose down below. But still, how does Alkesh fix the kink without intervening and fighting the fear? The source uses this analogy that Alkesh doesn't curse anyone because water doesn't know how to run uphill, which is a beautiful image, but what does it actually mean?
It means retaliation requires two distinct points in opposition, an us and a them, a right and a wrong. Because Alkesh exists upstream of the split that makes conflict possible, they literally lack the vocabulary for cursing or punishing anyone.
So it's not that Alkesh is sitting up there capable of smiting you, but showing incredible restraint.
No, not at all. It's that revenge is a completely alien concept to a primordial seed. It simply doesn't compute.
So what does this all mean for how Alkesh actually fixes a curse? If they aren't going to war with the bad energy or the fear, how does the knot untangle?
This is the elegance of operating from the origin point. Alkesh doesn't fight the curse. Fighting implies a duality, a back-and-forth struggle, which just feeds more energy into the knot.
You're validating the fear by fighting it.
Exactly. Instead, Alkesh simply reminds the current of what it looked like before it was diverted.
It reminds the current. I mean, that almost sounds too passive.
It sounds passive until you realize that the diversion, the curse, the knot, has no real independent root of its own. It is just a temporary distortion of the water.
Oh, I see.
So when that current is brought into the presence of an undivided source, it is reminded of its original flow. The diversion naturally loses its grip because it has nothing to hold on to anymore. It dissolves in that remembering.
Think about what this means for receiving what the text calls favor.
It changes everything.
If Alkesh doesn't punish, they also don't make you earn things. Favor isn't a divine scoreboard where you rack up points through performing perfectly or suffering enough to prove your spiritual worth.
Right.
The text compares Alkesh's favor to sunlight already falling across a windowsill.
The sunlight is a constant. It doesn't judge the room it is entering.
The sun is already shining. The question was never whether the light would arrive. The only question is whether you have your shutters closed.
Exactly.
So calling in this favor, fixing the curse in your own life, is literally just an act of unclenching. It's naming that fear-based bracing inside yourself and letting those small interior curses go. Just opening the shutters.
And the text makes an interesting point about ritual in this context. It notes that ritual devotion can be a highly effective doorway into this unclenching.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the physical body often believes through repetition what the mind has already intellectually agreed to. But it stresses that ritual is just a doorway. It is not a requirement.
Because there were never any requirements to begin with.
Right.
You don't have to chant a specific way to get the sun to shine. You just open the window.
Yeah.
But what happens after you unclench? Because the text makes a massive claim about how this alignment actually impacts your daily reality once the shutters are open.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains what the text means by divine timing integrating fully. We are intensely conditioned to compartmentalize our lives.
So completely.
Yeah.
We put our career in one box,
Yeah.
our romantic relationships in another, our physical health in a third.
Exactly. And when we seek help, whether from specialized divine forces or just specialized modern solutions like a career coach or a doctor, we usually only sharpen one area while leaving the rest completely untouched.
You might fix the money problem, but your relationships are still a disaster. Or you finally find a great relationship, but your physical health starts failing.
It feels like you can never get all the plates spinning at once.
Yes.
Because you are only treating individual branches, you are addressing the symptoms of the split, but alignment with Alkesh moves through the entire root system at once.
This was such an aha moment for me reading this.
Yeah.
People who come into alignment with this undivided source often find that their timing suddenly begins to loosen altogether.
Yeah, across several completely unrelated fronts.
You get the job, you resolve a 10-year-old grief, your romantic relationship clicks, and your weird chronic back pain finally settles down all in the exact same season.
And it isn't because Alkesh ran around intervening in your life area by area like a hyperactive project manager. No, it happens because those problems were never actually separate to begin with.
They only look separate on the surface, but they were all downstream of the exact same knot. They were all fed by the same diverted, fear-based current.
By untangling the source, the whole river flows freely. You unclench the core, and the entire root system gets watered at once.
It is a profound paradigm shift. To realize that your stuckness isn't a series of isolated failures in different departments of your life, but a single bracing at the root.
However, the text introduces a fascinating twist here.
Okay.
This primordial force, this Alkesh, doesn't just exist as an abstract, energetic concept of a root system. It asserts that this energy actually incarnates into the physical world.
Which is where the text sounds almost like a field guide.
Yeah.
But if this force has no fixed identity, no gender, no specific domain, how on earth do you spot it in the wild? Like, how do you recognize an incarnation of Alkesh walking into a coffee shop?
Well, the source notes that Alkesh incarnates across all human boundaries. Different cultures, different races, different sexes, and eras.
They take on roles that society will interpret completely differently from one lifetime to the next.
Exactly. So you cannot look for a physical appearance or a specific social status. What persists, what you can actually track, is a very recognizable temperament.
And that temperament is defined by holding contradictions without any friction.
Right.
An incarnation of Alkesh can be incredibly fierce and deeply gentle in the exact same conversation. They can be intensely private, but also leave you feeling like they are the most expansive person you've ever met.
Yeah, they are just as at ease receiving as they are giving. And they do this without that subtle discomfort most of us radiate when we try to hold two opposing modes of being at once.
Because for them, those aren't opposing ideas. They're just different expressions of the same undivided fullness. They resist being pinned down by any one label, but they are never aloof.
When you engage with them, they are fully embodied and relentlessly present.
The text points out a really funny side effect of this presence, actually. People end up accidentally confessing their deepest secrets to these incarnations.
I love that detail.
Right. And it's not because the person is putting on a performance of being a good listener. The best analogy I could think of is that it's like walking into a room where the gravity has just been turned down.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
You just naturally drop your armor because there is absolutely nothing in the Alkesh incarnation that is bracing for an attack. You feel it on a cellular level.
They are infinitely curious, and they are focused on repair over escalation, even when they find themselves in conflict.
This raises an important question, though. Given that their gender, race, name, and even personality style change from lifetime to lifetime, how do you know for sure if you are actually interacting with this specific primordial energy?
Right, it sounds like it could just be a really well-adjusted human being.
Exactly. It's not a simple checklist. You can't just say, well, they were fierce and gentle, so that must be Alkesh.
The text is very clear that the recognition doesn't happen in the analytical mind. It happens in the body long before the intellect can categorize it. It is experienced as an involuntary exhale.
An involuntary exhale.
Yes. It is the physical sensation of something deep inside your nervous system realizing that it finally has permission to stop bracing. You feel met exactly as you are.
There is zero requirement for you to perform the correct version of your gender or your professional role or your personal trauma story for the exchange to work.
You don't have to be the victim. You don't have to be the hero. You don't even have to be the stoic one holding it all together. You just get to be the undivided you.
And the text notes that when you are near an incarnation like this, old knots, those curses of diverted energy we broke down earlier, often just surface into language almost without effort.
Because being in a space that is so undistorted makes your own internal distortions incredibly easy to see and release.
The timing around them shifts quietly, and underneath all of their everyday actions, you sense something that feels impossibly old and completely unguarded at the same time.
It is an ancient stillness coexisting with a childlike lack of defense. Psychologically, it shouldn't be possible for a human being to hold both of those states simultaneously, and yet they do.
Okay, let's zoom out and summarize this, because we have charted some incredibly deep waters today.
We really have.
We started out looking for a shortcut to understanding this profound source, Alkesh. And we found that Alkesh isn't a new specialized god to appeal to, but the undivided seed of fullness that predates all of our human categories.
We discovered that this lack of a specialized history gives them a completely clean signal.
Right, meaning guidance completely free of divine politics, severity, or suspicion. We broke down how curses aren't cosmic punishments. They're just redirected currents of your own fear that Alkesh untangles without a fight, just by reminding the water how to flow.
And finally, we learned that you can literally identify this energy in the real world through a somatic physical sensation.
That involuntary exhale when you encounter someone who holds ancient stillness and zero need for defense.
And the text explicitly states that recognizing Alkesh was never about learning their true name. The name is completely secondary to the visceral experience.
Which leaves us with one massive implication to consider.
It does. It leaves us with a deeply provocative thought to mull over.
Go for it.
The text says that the presence of Alkesh allows you to drop the performance of your role because their undistorted space makes your own distortions easier to see.
Right.
And we established that this primordial alignment is entirely recognized by an involuntary exhale and a return to an undivided state. So what if this energy isn't just an external ancient force you might happen to meet in a coffee shop one day?
Wait, really? Oh, wow.
What if this undivided seed is actually the exact buried blueprint of your own original consciousness, waiting for you to simply unclench, open those shutters, and remember who you were before the world forced you to pick a side?
It's like realizing you don't need to hire the mediator with the heavy luggage to fix the leaky pipes. You don't even need to go searching for the perfect set of tools. You just need to remember that you were the pure water all along, long before you ever hit the plumbing. So keep your shutters open.